the states where it feels like everyone just has something to say about everything, it just is ridiculous. You know, like when I get on Facebook, I'm like, there has to be a line where people need to just stop sharing their opinions. Like, not every opinion matters. So it is kind of refreshing going to other countries where, like, I don't want to sound wrong, where people just aren't just freely just sharing their thoughts on everything. Just like if this person over here is not doing anything to affect you, you should not have opinion. You can have an opinion on it, but you do not need to voice that opinion. Like, I don't want to hear it. So I just got back from Thailand, and they're a monarchy, and you cannot speak out against the monarchy. And it was kind of nice, where it's just like people just keep to themselves and, like, honestly don't have an opinion on every little issue that comes up. And again, that's a freedom we, you know, have in America, and it's a great thing to have. But I don't know, man. A little censorship is kind of nice.
Hey, let's move along, man. We got to move ahead. We got to move ahead.
All right.
We got a lot to get to, man. We got to move ahead.
Okay.
I'll just end this topic off of just, you know, I encourage anybody to pick up a Quran up, you know, diversify your mind. You know, when I was 22, I just dipped into multiple religions, man. And it's just like fruit, man. You know what I mean? You can learn a little bit about every little culture. But we'll just keep this next topic short, so we can move on to other ones. So the Oregon under attack situation, I don't know how much, you know, read up you guys heard about that, but I'm going to say maybe last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, my Twitter was just blowing up, you know what I mean? And it was like Sunday morning, and I got all this stuff about Oregon under attack, and then by the end of the day, the whole headline had changed, and basically was a discrepancy between white men with guns called peaceful protesters compared to black quote unquote thugs who were protesting / activists in Ferguson. And so I tweeted a picture that you could probably see on Twitter. It's going to be the cover page for this podcast, but it basically has two guys, two armed men, and it has one without a gun, and it has one with a gun, and it says, you know, conservative versus a terrorist. And I just wanted to get you guys' opinions on that briefly, on the whole Oregon under attack situation.
Well, I think the media played into it based off of culturally, because I think where a lot of those things happen at, they are like literally, they're not gun-free zones. They're like gun-loving states in Oregon, where like Oregon is like you can open carry. You can basically have a gun on your hip and it be visible, and that's legal. So when I see that, you know, they didn't come down on them aggressively, to me, because it's like that's part of their culture in Oregon, in that state. But usually in urban settings, it's illegal to carry guns. Like it's illegal to carry a gun in New York. It's illegal to carry a gun in Chicago. So if somebody open carry out there, it automatically be, okay, he's trying to do damage immediately. Now he's trying to kill somebody. Even though he may not. I think that the response of the police culture, even in those areas, would be different. Now, I know that I couldn't go in the urban area and open carry, and the police don't come up and, you know, probably take me out of here for open carrying. Now, I don't think they could have done that in New York or Philadelphia without being aggressively addressed. Because I thought about it, I was like, are they doing this? Is this strictly just race, or is maybe culture? Because I started thinking about Oregon. I'm like, Oregon is like, you know, that's out in the sticks. That's like, it's all rural. They fighting over like 300 acres of land. It's a different culture. And I saw that they open carry out there. I was like, well, maybe that's something different. You know what I mean? Even probably the cops out there probably open carry. But I think the comments about them being them people, but them being like, you know, activists and Black Lives Matter being like terrorists, I think that was probably coming from like, I don't think that was coming from the media, because I don't think the media ever called like Black Lives Matter terrorists or something.
That was the people speaking up on that one. Yeah, that wasn't the media. That was just.
Oh, yeah, 'cause I think the people like Francisco said, like everybody got an opinion.
Yeah.
And, people just be blogging and writing comments like, oh, he's terrorists. Oh, look at him, like complaining and whining. Everybody real scared and everything.
Right.
So I don't believe that in an urban area that can be done, but I do believe in a rural area in a different culture that probably can be done by white people and maybe some Native Americans or something, or some blacks in the rural area if they lived in that culture for years. But I just think the urban community, like, you can't have somebody open carry and do that in Baltimore when they protest, because it's automatically going to elicit a certain response immediately.
I don't think. I'm just play devil's advocate. I don't think a group of black people could even do that in Oregon, man. Even with guns, waving American flags.
I was gonna say, like, Armand, I think, brought up a good point. Like, when you travel around the states, like, it is very different when you go state to state, city to city. So, like, life in Oregon, I really can't have an opinion on, because I've never even been there. I can't even formulate what it's like to live in that rural area.
True.
But I do know I saw some social media from some Native Americans saying that if they were in that same situation, they wouldn't be viewed as welcomed or peaceful protesters. So it's not only a black-white thing. Like, I think Native Americans may feel the same way that blacks do on this particular situation about, holding up somebody with firearms.
While we're on Native Americans, I'm gonna pause you real quick. Yeah, while we're on Native Americans, how do you guys feel about? Okay, so first of all, I made a vow to never say the Washington football team's name ever again. Matter of fact, Frank, didn't we have this conversation in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Before the Steelers Broncos game.
So I just feel like as a racial slur, and I feel like our other comrade Steve was kind of like, well, what's the big deal? And I feel like, okay, like you might have felt that way now, but I feel like it's one of those things where, like, people just need to be educated as a whole. For 20 years from now, people look like, wow, how could the Redskins have a team with that name? And I know this is a very small thing, but why you said Native Americans, I just wanted to make a comment on that. And I just think that's horrible that's still happening. You know what I mean? And Native American culture as a whole has been degraded and not respected. And but go ahead, man. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh yeah, I mean, besides that, I was going to say, I was just going to comment on the open carry. Like, Armand, technically PA is an open carry state, and, like, being in Philly, like, you're right, you probably couldn't just open carry, but being in Pittsburgh, like, I've seen people in Walmart open carrying, and this is a state law, so a lot of times you'll see very different things in Western PA than you do in Eastern PA.
But even in Western PA, could a group of black people with guns do that?
But they did it.
So that's the crazy part. It's legal to open carry, but it's illegal to conceal carry without a license.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But Frank,
that's why I changed my opinion. Because I was like, before I just look at everything, I try to research before if I don't know nothing about it, I'm gonna just try to get some more information. So, but when I started researching, when I was a history major at Temple, the Black Panthers did that. They went into the San Francisco City Hall, San Francisco, with guns. They had AKs, I think like assault rifles, and they went in there. They didn't get shot, but they had to leave. And they said it's their right. It's their right to bear arms. They knew the law. The Black Panthers knew the law and everything. So they didn't go in there and point them at nobody, but they were armed and they were loaded. And there wasn't no standoff. They didn't kill them or anything. I just think that I think now, I don't know what would happen now if I went in there with the culture that we got with things happening. They will automatically call the police and SWAT immediately to address that situation. But I think if somebody was on their own land, like in South Carolina with, guns and saying we're not leaving our own land, I don't know how they would respond to it, because I just think it's all situational.
Yeah, so another aspect, so a lot of times I'll listen to, like, opposing news outlets just to get a good perspective. So I listened to a Glenn Beck podcast on this, and I think he's officially a Tea Partier. He's, kind of out there, but this is like a perfect argument for advocating for Second Amendment rights. I think that's probably one of the original intentions for having the Second Amendment is when the federal government tries to overextend their arm And that's what's going on in Oregon. Like these cattlers or ranchers, they want to like grade or have their cattle on what is now like heavily regulated federal land or something like that. And I don't know all the details of it, but basically like some of these Oregon farmers were locked up because they had firearms on federal property. So the same way the Black Panthers moving to California, I don't even know if that can happen because I don't think you can take a firearm onto federal property. So
you can't do it no more. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there are a lot of like technicalities that may be at play today that weren't at play back then, and similarly in Oregon may not apply to a predominantly urban city like Baltimore or Philly.
Well, y'all also too, you got to put into play that San Fran, even in the '60s, was way more evolved than a place like Oregon or Pittsburgh. You know what I'm saying? We talking about the land of the hippies. You know what I'm saying? So I mean that also San Fran was just way more developed, evolved culturally. You know what I mean, as a whole as well. But we'll slide into the next topic, man. Good stuff so far. So another topic that I found on Twitter, having to do with my man RZA from the Mighty Wu-Tang and his comments on Black Lives Matter. And this one kind of like I kind of had an issue with because a lot of people that I know personally kind of dissing him on this, and some folks that I follow on Twitter that I like what they post. I like what they're about on the social media. So I kind of I was kind of going back and forth with some of these folks, and I'll play the portion of the interview for folks that didn't hear it.
Understand law, right? But when you think about, some of the brothers who are being brutalized by the police, you know what I mean? You also got to have them take a look in the mirror at the image we portray. If I'm a cop and every time I see a young black youth, whether I watch them on TV, movies, or just see them hanging out and they're not looking, properly dressed, properly refined, carrying themselves, conducting themselves proper hours of the day, things that a man does, you know what I mean? You're going to have a certain kind of fear and stereotype of them. And that's, I tell my sons, I say, if you're going somewhere, you don't have to wear a hoodie and, we live in New York, so hoodies and all that is all good, but sometimes button up your shirt, clean up. Look like a young man. You're not a little kid, you know what I mean? So I think that's another big issue we got to pay attention to is the image that we portray that could invoke a fear to a white officer or to any officer. The image.
Okay, so I'll go first on this one. First of all, a lot of people didn't hear the entire interview, right? Just like everything, you hear 30 seconds or something, and then it gets publicized as whatever people think that whole interview was about, right? This kind of brought me back to a conversation I had 2 years ago with my little cousin, which is Francisco's sister. And Trayvon Martin had just happened, and I was kind of explaining. It was a whole little kind of like debate. It was happening in my aunt's kitchen, and my point of view was, I'm not saying Trayvon was right or wrong, but I was kind of trying to tell my little cousin, it's people, places, and things, and sometimes we need to be aware of how we look. So I could throw a hoodie on and some sweatpants and a pair of Jordans, and I could look like a drug dealer. My man Sean, who's white, he could throw the same thing on and look like a drug dealer, right? But I have to know the perception of what it is in American culture. I'm not saying that you should reform or conform, but it helps you a whole lot when you're aware of how an image may play in terms of ideas in other people. And I think RZA got bashed kind of crazy. You call him a sellout, all this and that and the third. Somebody posted a picture like of a slave getting hung, and it was like, sorry RZA, I died too, and I wore a suit. You know what I mean? So it was like, they killed him on there, but that was just my little viewpoint.
They killed me with that because that was like 200 years ago. Like when they use a picture from 200 years ago,